Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Red Hour, a show I do twice a week. Not Mondays, Wednesdays and Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern. If you're new here, my name's the Dead Man. The channel is called The Grateful Trek, and the show is called the Red Hour. Um, and I do, like I said, I do it Wednesdays and Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Unfortunately, yesterday I had to work and was not able to do a show. Hopefully, next week, I will be back on the regular schedule. There's been a lot going on since Thanksgiving at my work that keeps shaking things up over and over and over. And it's hard for me to maintain this Wednesday, Thursday schedule, but I try to as much as physically possible. I'm very sorry to anyone in my audience if you, which is not huge, but if you're looking for me to be regular, uh, and I'm not, uh, this is this is nothing of my choice or my doing. I wish that I could just have these same days off every week for eternity, but it's not happening. But next week, I know for sure that there's impossible for an interruption from my work. I say that. A near impossible interruption from my work for next Wednesday and Thursday. So I will be here unless I'm dead or in the hospital or just like deathly ill. Wednesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in order to do the Red Hour. And if you're new here, the Red Hour is a show that I do, as I was saying, twice a week where I throw a little chaos into Star Trek by doing a random episode. So, the last episode, I have a randomizer. Um, a website that I go on on my phone that allows you to choose a random episode, and it chose this episode, Voyager, season 7, episode 4, and this is the review. The title of the show of the episode is Repression. So, I just wanted to explain a few things to any potential people out there lurking of how the show works, what time I'm on, what the name that I go by, the name of the channel, the name of the show that I'm doing, and I wanted to explain the interruptions. And I think what I need to do is start going on Twitter, which you can find at the Deadman 5446 is the handle, and that so anybody out there, if you want to contact me on Twitter, that's the handle that I go by, and I'm going to start using that more often. I really hate social media, but Twitter, we're sort of forced into it. Anyway, so now that I've got all that out of the way, let's go on with the review. And at the end of the review, I will address any comments that pop up in the chat, and I will press the randomizer button again, and that will determine what episode I review for next week on Wednesday. And I'm also going to have the next, starting Sunday, I'm going to have the next couple of weeks off from my work because of spring break. Woo! Not going anywhere, not doing anything exciting, but I might be popping up from time to time to talk about random, I don't know, maybe a movie I watched, or maybe an X Files episode that I'm watching, or there is X Files news, which maybe I'll talk about that. Um, or just whatever, you know, maybe I'm just lonely and bored. Who knows? I don't know. I haven't really planned any of this out, but let's go ahead with the review now that I've gotten all of that information out of the way and probably bored everybody to tears. So in the beginning, we see a Bajoran guy, and he's doing some sort of incantation or chant or whatever word that you want to use for that. And I need a thesaurus. I cannot speak well. And he's saying this incantation and chant, and he's doing something on a panel that we're not so sure exactly what he's doing, but suddenly we see the faces of Belana Torres, Tuvok, and Chakotay. And then that's it. That's the teaser. It's one of the quickest teasers that I have seen recently. I know Enterprise used to have some really like short ones, like maybe a couple minutes, or less. This is one of the shorter ones for Voyager. Starfleet Academy has really long ones. And they're usually, and then the episodes are longer too, and they're usually like unnecessarily long. Anyway, Tom, Paris, and B'Elanna are in the corridors with. Sorry, I've got some junk in my throat or something. Let me take a sip. Okay, so Tom Paris and B'Elanna are in the corridor. She has flowers in her hands, and basically they're on their way to a date. And I think at this point, they've already gotten married, right? And there's an episode of Voyager where she finds out she's pregnant, and then she flips out and has this whole, takes like the doctor hostage or something, or reprograms him. I don't know. Anyway, that's not this episode. They are on their way to a date, and they're on their way to see a movie. So they're in the theater, and it's a recreation of like the Chicago theater. I'm not familiar with that theater. Apparently, it's a pretty famous one. So the movie that they're watching is Revenge of the Creature, which is the creature from the Black Lagoon. And Tom is leaning over, trying to make moves on her. She says, asks him if he has like a crick in his neck. And he says that people didn't just come to the movies. Movies weren't the only reason people came. And basically trying to make a move on her and kisses her. And then one of the audience members, was the holodeck NPC, to use our terms, uh, shushes them. So he gets rid of the audience, and then we see there's still someone um, in the front row, and so they go to investigate it, and it's a Bajoran crew member, and he's passed out, and so they take him to oh hello, Michelle Ferry is here. Fairy Tales. Michelle Fairy Tales is here. Hello. Um, and so he's in. They take the guy to sick bay, and he's in a coma. And it appears that there's like some sort of um, there's a there's micro fractures on his cranium, and his name is Tabor. Ensign, I think it's Ensign Tabor, and Tuvok is basically Janeway basically places him in charge of the investigation, which I don't know that that was necessary to say to the audience 7 years in, when we know that Tuvok is head of security, but I digress. So he goes to Tabor's quarters, and there's a girl there. There's a woman there looking through some books of his, and she asks what he's doing there, or what she's doing there, and she says that she wants to bring Tabor a book, and he states that he's in a coma, and she says that she knows, but she has heard that she wants to read the book to him, and has heard that that could help people in comas. And I think that's a thing that people do when they're in the hospital, you know. I mean, you talk to your loved one when they're, out, in a coma or whatever, when they're like in. I mean, you see that. I've been watching the X Files, as Michelle Fairy Tales knows, because I've said this. There's several incidences where Scully is like in the hospital, and Mulder is like trying to talk to her while she's like passed out, or whatever. And then goes back and forth. I think there's times when Mulder's in the hospital, and we see this. This is a real thing. So a little bit of what Admiral Teague, a word that I'm going to use a word that Admiral Teague does not like, but Robert Meyer Burnett does like, a little bit of verisimilitude there. Makes it more believable for the audience. Anyway, so Janeway is talking to Tuvok and in her ready room, and she's basically like throwing out the idea that there could be, because he suspects this woman is the one that attacked Tabor, and because were like, I guess, more than friends, and or were very close, and he's very rigid about his he's very like sure of himself, and Janeway is basically saying, well, there could be other reasons that this happened, and so on, and he says, well, I guess you could call it a hunch, and she's like, well, I didn't think Vulcans had hunches, because that's more of an emotional thing, although you could call it instinct, I guess, but he can't shake it. He's sure that one of the crew members is involved in this. So he goes to we see engineering, and it's that same lady, I forget her name. I I wrote it down somewhere. Jor. It's Ensign Jor or Commander. I don't know. Jor. They just keep calling her Jor. So she's doing something in engineering. There's some sort of power fluctuation or something. Something's off, and she sends this one guy to go investigate it. And so he crawls into the Jeffries tube, and he's looking around, and the power goes out, and then all of a sudden we see a pair of like a flashlight facing him, and is slowly uh, going in his direction. And I see DJ Play Nice is here. Hello there, DJ Play Nice. And he's trying to get out of there, and he's trying to, the lights, he's kind of scared being chased because the guy, he's asking, who's there, and there's no response. So he ends up in a coma as well, and so they're in sick bay, and now there's two of them, and then basically Tuvok asks who was the last one to, or I think Chakotay asked who was the last one to see him, or who found him, and they say Jor. So now the suspicion is really on Jor. And then crewman. Okay, they call her. Oh, that's right. I wrote a note about this because they keep calling everyone crewman, even the females. It's like, and this would be like a huge deal today. Like they would be saying, "Excuse me, I'm a crew woman," That's why I wrote that. I wrote "man" in my notes, and basically, yeah, it would be like this big deal when it just mean it's like calling, it's like saying for all mankind. Like we're talking humans, humanity. The fact that people has to have that explained to them is beyond any rational thought. I mean, it's I don't understand it, but anyway. So crewman Jor is now in a coma. Oh, they're looking for crewman Jor, and the computer says that she's in the mess hall, so they go to the mess hall, and she's in a coma. So, and doctor remarks that if this keeps up, he's going to have to open up a coma ward. And turns out they're all former Marquis. And then Tuvok says that the assailant must, because of all the problems that have been going on, that the assailant must have some security access. So Chakotay gathers all the other former Marquis members and tells them to stay in pairs and hands them a phaser. And they're basically saying that, it's been 7 years since Starfleet and Marquis clashed, and we've resolved all our problems now. So why is this going on now? So then, back on the holodeck, Harry and Tom have been able to create like a latent image of the assailant and the Bajoran guy that was in the theater with, who also had set up the program for Tom. I forgot to mention that. And then so that you see a figure, you see him, and then a figure, and they're trying to figure out who the assailant is. So then, B'Elanna and one of the blue, I forget their race name, one of the blue guys, the barber from TNG was one of those blue guys, and the Blue Man Group. uh, what was it? Arrested Development. Tobias Funk. Yeah, we'll call him Tobias Funk. Are together, and they're talking about what's going on, and he has all these little conspiracy theories about how, like, they've been sending data streams to Starfleet, and then maybe Starfleet still thinks they're a threat, even though it's been 3 years since the whole dust up with the Marquis, and at this point the Dominion War is going on. And so then we have in the conference room, Tuvok asks Harry to come into the conference room, and he's asking him about a data stream. He says, basically, this all started with the last data stream from Starfleet, in that he had had a communication from his cousin, whose friend had died, and had died at the hands of the Marquis. So he's basically kind of accusing Harry of, like, having something to do with this, but then it's pretty clear that it's pretty clear that Harry didn't have anything to do with this, and he says that he knew about the death of the guy before, and yes, he was angry, but he wasn't going to do anything about that because he knew that it wasn't the Marquis guy's fault. And we see a look of frustration in Tuvok's face, and I think he calls it most perplexing. And so then Chakotay is looking for Torres because he runs into the Tobias Funk, and she's no longer with him. And he says that she wanted to go on her own, that she can handle things by herself, and says, you know how she is, and she's very stubborn. And Chakotay says, well, where do you think she went? And he says Cargo Bay 2. So they go to Cargo Bay. He goes to Cargo Bay 2 and finds her in a coma as well. And then Tuvok walks in and attacks Chakotay and does a mind meld with him. So then, and starts saying this Bajoran incantation, and says that this is a holy time. And then Tuvok is with Janeway in her ready room, and he's talking about this investigation and how it's very frustrating with him. He can't figure out what's going on, and that he doesn't want to rest until he figures it out. And Janeway, or maybe she's in the cargo bay. Maybe they're in the cargo bay. No. And Janeway basically tells him to go get some sleep, and says that she doesn't want to have to make it an order. So he goes to his quarters and starts to meditate, and then he starts remembering things. So he sees this Bajoran guy that we saw in the beginning of the episode, in the teaser, and he sees him in the mirror, and he looks back, and the guy's not there, and he's kind of like freaking out. He remembers attacking Chakotay. He starts remembering all the other attacks and stuff, and looks down on because Chakotay had fought back and kind of bruised him a little bit. So he looks down and sees the bruise, and they get it right. It's green blood. It's not well, blood. A bruise is more like blue, but still, it's the effort that counts. I guess their blood would be when it's not exposed to oxygen would be like copper colored. I don't know. Anyway, or bronze looking. Never really thought about that till now. But so then he goes to the holodeck and he sees Janeway there and Harry are there, and they're still working on this latent image that's. And by the way, I keep saying that, but there is a Voyager episode called Latent Image, which is actually pretty good. It's a philosophical dilemma with the Doctor, but that's the best way to describe it because that's what it is. That's what it looks like. Or like when you have a picture with a kind of fuzzy picture, or like a Kodak picture or something, and it doesn't come out right. Polaroid picture, yeah, you gotta shake it, shake it like a polo. Okay, sorry. Anyway, that's what it kind of looks like. It's like a fuzzy Polaroid picture. That's the best way to explain it. So he tells the computer to extrapolate, or he asks the computer where was Lieutenant Commander or Lieutenant Tuvok at the time of these attacks, and the computer says that it's been that it's not available, like they can't access it, and he overrides the computer, and basically it reveals that Tuvok he's the one that's been doing his attacks, and he pulls his phaser because he sees this guy, the Bajoran guy, behind Harry, and then Harry quick draws and pulls his phaser, and Janeway tells Harry to stand down, and he doesn't, and then Janeway, actually I thought it was kind of funny, it's like, she just told you to stand down, and you're just still pointing your phaser at him. Usually in Star Trek, when they say stand down, it happens. But anyway, Janeway is talking to Tuvok and then saying, who is this man that you see? And he says he doesn't know. And then he tells Janeway that he's the attacker and that he needs to be put in the brig. So, then in the brig, Janeway is like asking him questions and trying to get more information out of him. And this saying that he keeps saying over and over, and he says it's a Bajoran incantation, but he doesn't know who the guy is. And he says there's something about it was mentioned earlier about the letters. It was mentioned earlier about the letters that they were getting when all this started. And he said, Tuvok says that he examined all the letters except for the one for him from his son. So in Astromech's lab, and this is our only appearance from Seven in this episode, they are examining this letter and find out that there was a hidden signal in the letter. It was basically like she describes it as a letter within a letter. that nobody would have, Tuvok would not have known it was there. And Janeway asked them to figure out what the symbols are. And then basically, if you've ever heard of MK Ultra, which was the CIA in this real program, you can look it up. The CIA was doing like LSD experiments and whatnot, and mind control experiments to create assassins. And this was during the 60s. And not to get too deep into it, but when Oswald was arrested, he was called a patsy, and seemed to be that there was other people involved, and some people think that he was part of this program because he was the CIA knew about him before JFK was assassinated. They knew about his trip to Mexico, they knew about his trip to Russia, and was allowed to come back during the height of the Cold War. The Cuban Missile Crisis had just happened like a year prior. How that happens, that seems kind of weird to me. And then, and the only reason we know this is because in the 70s, the House was doing an investigation on JFK's assassination called the Church Committee, where they, one of the very few times that Congress has ever had any oversight over the CIA, they were able to get these declassified documents that talks about this MK Ultra program. And there's other programs that we learned from that Operation Mockingbird, where they were recruiting news editors to basically do propaganda for them during the Vietnam War and stuff like that. And I'm telling you, if you don't believe me, you can look all this up. This is all real. AJ from the Y-Files has talked about it. Other people, Neurotic has talked about it a little bit on Forbidden Frontier. This is all real things. And then when you look at the kid, Crooks, who shot at Trump and missed where he hit his ear, a lot of the kind of people that they would recruit for this program fits his profile. He had no online presence. He was young. He was in a BlackRock commercial. I'm getting way off into the deep end, but I'm just saying, they say that program was discontinued, but I tend to believe that they just changed the names of them and continue them under a different name. Anyway, that's what this kind of situation is. And his name is... So, Chakotay is ultimately able to identify the guy. His name is Tiro Hernandez, and he worked for Marquis Intelligence, and basically the Marquis had to get rid of him because he was doing these mind control experiments that went too far, and Tuvok, Janeway tells Tuvok this, and he slowly remembers the guy, and he has all these repressed memories of him being in this underground cave, where he had met the guy, right, undercover as a Marquis. I guess he captured Tuvok and has him on this table where he's telling him this incantation and this he's like programming him, and does not tell. He says that he's not. He finds out that he's Starfleet. Is not interested in that. He's not going to tell the others. But he's in this lab underground, and Tuvok says he's trained to resist mind control, but this guy is able to beat his training, and the message that he sent. So then he, as he's telling this story, he taps his comm badge and tells Chakotay that this is a holy time of awakening, and it's like Order 66. It's same kind of deal, same kind of understanding. Like, this is a secret message that awakens your soldiers to go to war, or in the case of Star Wars, assassinate the Jedi. So B'Elanna is on the bridge, and she grabs the phaser and zaps Harry, and they basically take over the bridge. And then they put Janeway in the brig, and they're planning on relocating all of Starfleet, their crew, to a M-class planet. And Chakotay says he's not going to hurt anyone, but it's time to take over. Janeway is saying that the Marquis disbanded 3 years prior, and that they were no longer at war with the Cardassians or the Federation, and that they don't mention the Dominion War, but the Dominion War is going on. And again, the Marquis was an interesting idea, but it didn't really go anywhere. I liked Eddington. I liked. People say that Cisco gassed a whole planet or whatever. Well, he gave them warning, so if he gave them time to get out of there, and he gave them a warning. So Cisco did nothing wrong. Same with in the Pale Moonlight. Cisco did nothing wrong. Janeway did nothing wrong with Tuvix. Yeah, I said it. So they're cheersing, and they're wearing their marquee clothes or civilian clothes or whatever you want to call it, from like season 1, and they're in Janeway's office, and he's cheersing with Vulcan brandy. So I mentioned I mentioned a while back about how in Starfleet Academy there was Vulcans like drinking, taking shots, but apparently they do have brandy. So maybe they use it for medicinal purposes, or I don't know. I don't think most Vulcans go around doing shooters, So my criticism of that still stands, because he was intentionally getting drunk. It wasn't like he was just. Oh, I met somebody pointed out online. Well, when First Contact happened, they had beers with. That was First Contact. That was like a sort of quasi official diplomatic moment. So of course you would at least have one drink with the person that you're trying to be diplomatic with and establish relations with. Anyway, I'm not even going to talk about this week's episode. Boring and emotional manipulative. They try to force emotions that are unearned. That's all I'm going to say about this week's episode. It's just unearned, forced emotion. When they want to do like and Tilly's there. Yay. They wanted to do like a therapy session for the whole class, especially Black Canary, and she's having none of it. And then at the end, they do. They're going over like a play theater. Yeah. Admiral Teague will be having a show later on today, in just about an hour from now, where you can hear him and the panel talk all about that episode. Anyway, so then they bring Janeway in and hand Tuvok a phaser, and basically it's a loyalty test to shoot or to kill Janeway. And she says to Chakotay, "You said you weren't going to hurt anyone," and he says that it has to be done. So Chakotay goes to fire the phaser, and the phaser is faulty. He says this phaser is defected, and he hands Chakotay the phaser, and Chakotay says, "Take her back to the brig," and he tells Tuvok, "You passed the test." Then Chakotay basically forces a mind meld on, Tuvok forces a mind meld on Chakotay. Basically, he was faking it the whole time, and goes and rescues the captain, and they take back the ship, take back control of the ship, and in the end, they're going to go watch a movie, and I forgot to mention they were using like 3D glasses, which at some point Tuvok thought was used as a weapon. So that was kind of a funny moment. And the movie is called Attack of the Lobster People. I don't know if that's a real movie or not. I know the Black Lagoon one is. I'm assuming these are movies that Paramount has in their catalog or something. Janeway asked Chakotay how he knew, and he says that Chakotay didn't trust him at the time, so he would not give him a working phaser. And then they go back to talking about how it was a hunch. And Janeway says, "Remind me to be more mindful of your hunches." And because it's the ultimate definition of filler, they don't even really explain why this Bajoran guy was doing this other than to keep the fight going, I guess. And so in the end, it was just kind of pointless, right? Because he uses a mind meld to get everybody to become Marquis, and then he uses the mind meld to take him back to normal. So it was just kind of pointless and stupid, and which is just kind of sucks, because at this point Voyager was getting better, but this was just straight up just pointless episode. I hate that I even wasted my time watching it. But that's a 7 out of 10 for Voyager, which I put in a higher category than Starfleet Academy, which I've given higher scores for, but it's a lower bar. So I don't know, you figure out the math on all that. Anyway, see what's up in the chat. So as I said, Michelle Ferry showed up. DJ Play Nice says hello. And then nice Outcast riff. Yeah, DJ Play Nice says. Um, Gavin Blackburn shows up. MK Ultra had a lot of programs. Yes, it's a real thing. I think it's still going. And then everybody's just saying the Mockingbird is still running. In my opinion, sure does seem that way, especially during COVID. And the whole thing with social media and all that stuff. Yeah, Tuvok was behind it all along, Gavin. And Gavin says that Attack of the Lobster People is not real. The closest thing was the Lobster Man from Voyage to Bottom of the Sea. Well, I know that the MST3K, there's a couple of, there's like a giant spider one, there's the crawling eye, there's, I think they did the creature from Black Lagoon, or some facsimile of, as Doomcock would say. Yeah, I don't know. But now that everybody's here, at least the people that I see on the regular, I was explaining at the top of the show, for people that are lurking or that are new to the show, that, you know, in the past I was doing this, well, I started off on Mondays, but we're doing it Wednesdays and Thursdays. So next Wednesday, we're back to normal schedule. I will be back here next Wednesday, next Thursday, unless I'm dead or in the hospital or deathly ill. I'm going to be on break for spring break. So my job, you know, I'm not going to be. There shouldn't be any interference from my job that would make it so I'm not here on Wednesday or Thursday next week for the next 2 weeks, and hopefully going forward there will be less interruptions in the show, because I want to stick to the Wednesday Thursday schedule. Yes, it's spring break, but I'm not doing anything exciting. I'm just going to be here. So the next 2 weeks, definitely back on schedule, Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m., Wednesday and Thursday. So let's see what Wednesdays, and as you can see, nothing has changed. So let's randomize it again. And unnatural selection, I think I already did that one. I brought the book with me this time, so I don't have to get up and go away. I should be more efficient. As I bet 7 and 9 would not like my inefficiency. I can't read my own handwriting. Yes, unnatural selection I've already done. So, let's randomize again. Deep Space Nine, Season 5, 19, the Ties of Blood and Water. I don't think I've done that. No. So next Wednesday will be Deep Space Nine, Season 5, Episode 19, Ties of Blood and Water. That sounds Klingonish. Don't remember. So, I will see everyone back. I want to thank DJ Plain. I keep, the past couple of times I've been on, I haven't thanked you guys for showing up. And I keep forgetting about that. And also want to do my sign off. Anyway, I want to thank Michelle Fairy Tales. I want to thank DJ Play Nice, and I want to thank Gavin Blackburn for showing up. Anyone that was lurking, or anyone that sees this in the future, and DJ Play Nice says to leave a thumbs up and reload when it ends, right, to leave a comment. It only takes a moment and it means a lot. Yes, it does. Both of those things. And if you subscribe, it is free. I hear people say that. I mean, it's free. Okay, yeah. But then the algorithm picks up some. What if I'm just watching some random video that please subscribe to my channel, but let's say I'm watching some random video, maybe I want to watch see what Jessie Gender has to say about Starfleet Academy. I don't want to subscribe to Jessie Gender and get all these notifications about her. Yeah, sure, it's free, but there's an implication there. But I assume if you're subscribing, you want to be here, you want to get notices. And remember, everyone, rule of acquisition number 502, greed is good, but it's dangerous. Proceed